The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello all, and welcome to the Application Packaging for Windows 7 Migration webcast presented by Mike Jager. We're going to begin in just a few short moments, but before we do, I'd like to remind everybody that if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the questions box. I'll try to answer any I can during the session. But if there's something that only Mike Jager can answer, we'll go ahead and hold those until the question and answer session at the end. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mike Jager.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Welcome, everybody, to our Tuesday webcast on May 24th. And this is a topic I imagine is going to be critical to everyone on our call today, application packaging for Windows 7. We're approaching, coming up on our second year that Windows 7 has been out in the wild. Now it's time for organizations to take that jump and move it over from XP or Vista if you were so brave to go to Vista. Now, this is something that's dear to my heart as well. I've done many migrations with clients. I even lived through one for 18 months with a client for 40,000 nodes. And a lot of these topics and learned lessons are that we took from that experience. So this is not only a presentation on best practices, but it's also recommendations and advice that we're giving you so that your migration can go smoothly and you don't have to experience bumps that other organizations have experienced. All right? Now, when we talk about migrations, what's one of the items everybody forgets? It's not packaging. Packaging is way down the road. First, you need to understand applications. Right? One of the big things that organizations do is jump right into a migration. They know what their hardware is. They've taken the time to make sure that the hardware will support Windows 7. And now their staff are trained to go ahead and deploy the images. There should be a big red X there. One of the most important and critical items to a migration is the applications that are in the environment. Now, there's a lot of things that go into understanding how you're going to migrate an application. First off, you have to identify them. Right? We need to understand what applications are there, and most importantly, what do you want to put back down? Everything? I really don't think so. If you look at your environment, chances are, for a simple 1,000 node environment, you probably have in the neighborhood of 700 to 1,000 different applications. Some you want, some you don't want, some you don't even know about. Now the question is, how do you determine which ones to put back down? And then also, how do you determine whether or not you're ready to put those applications onto Windows 7? Right? So throughout this, we're going to talk about the latter of those two, because the first part is really a best practice consulting with each individual company. How to determine what you want to put back down. That's a very personal decision for each organization. The second part is where we can really give you some advice and best practices, how to get them to Windows 7. Right? For organizations that have this challenge, first, they're going to have to invest some time and their expertise from their staff on testing these in an isolated environment. There's no way to get around it. Right? If you have, say, narrowed it down to 100 applications, well, the first thing that managers are going to ask is, are we ready? Do we know that these are going to function? There's only one way to do that. You've got to have Windows 7 ready. Not deployed to your desktops, but in a test lab, maybe in a help desk environment, somewhere where you can do beta testing. And if you do crash somebody, well, it's not an end user. Right? There's no one to call on the screen. The next part is determining the installation problems that you may experience. And you'll know this by trial and error if you're doing this yourself internally. Now, some of the common issues we're going to have with putting applications onto Windows 7, first off, don't fool yourself in believing that you can overcome these as you go. It's not true. Application issues will derail your migration. It's not because you're not prepared as far as the OS is concerned. It's not because your staff aren't capable. They are very good at their job. It's a simple fact that if you wait and deal with application issues, and packaging as we're going to talk about, during the migration, you've missed all of your preparation period. You need to have these steps down before you do the very first desktop putting it to Windows 7. Now, if we do have migrations being derailed, what are some of the things that we have to take into account? The automated installation routines. This is critical. Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's say there's 100 applications that you've identified you want to put back down. Well, how are you going to do those? A lot of organizations will even have a systems management tool, such as Landesk or SCCM or Altiris or BigFix, but they don't know how to automate the installation. They have the media. Some of them are easy to do, such as Microsoft Office. Some of them are not so easy from smaller vendors that create applications that really can't provide you the support. Another one is, will the applications be correctly configured? If they've been on the desktop for 4 or 5 years, the question has to come up, Do we remember how to configure this? Do we remember what settings are going to drive our end users batty if we don't put them back? Remember, if you're on XP, it's been a long time since XP has been out there, and therefore your images for XP are quite old. They probably still function perfectly for you, but a lot of that knowledge of how these applications need to be configured may have been lost or simply not considered for quite some time. The next is going to be applications that just won't install. Right? If you're going to Windows 7, especially 64-bit, the question is going to become, do our applications even go to Windows 7? And if not, well, how do we get around that? Is there any way we can do virtualization? Will professional packaging make it easier so that it's not conflicting with Windows 7 DLL? Or is it the fact that you have to bite the bullet, call the manufacturer, and get the latest version, and then package it? All very critical questions. And more importantly, questions that need to be asked before you do your migration in that preparation period that I mentioned. Now, this all goes to the last thing we see here on the slide. A lot of these issues, if you don't do them ahead of time, you're going to find during the migration and also after it's too late. Remember, one application, if you deploy it out during the migration, can have an impact 1,000 times over. Think about that. One application, packaged or manually installed, if you don't realize the problem is there until it's too late afterwards, and you've already put it out, you now have 1,000 problems to deal with, not one problem. So the preparation period ahead of migration really is the most critical step. And this is where we talk about our packaging and the different applications. Now, common application migration issues, we talked about a little of these already. Right? Is it tested in your environment? Yes or no? If you've done it 7 years ago, well, have you done it recently? Do you know that your common operating environment, your organizational standards, are going to allow that application to function? And what do we mean by that? Well, a common operating environment is typically what an organization will do when they try to say we've had enough with different XP builds and different ways applications are configured, different GPOs for different business units. So they try to standardize. And the migration is an excellent time to do that. But you have to keep in mind that your application may be affected. This all goes back. Don't find out during the migration. Take those organizational standards and test them against your software before you ever do that first machine. Again, we'll support the Windows 7 architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, Windows 7 is not Windows XP. We have left the building and we are going on to the next part of our world. XP 2000, totally different. Therefore, if you had an easier time migrating from 2000 to XP and you believe you're not going to run into issues going to Windows 7, I truly hope for the best for you. I do. But don't count on it. Take the opportunity, test first. Test 3 times, migrate once. Yes, I did steal that, by the way. Is the installation consistent? Right? If we don't have automation, as we talked about before, being able to automate it and make it silent, how can we guarantee that it's consistent? If you do manual installation, and even if you're a small organization, say 100 nodes, 500 nodes, you can do things pretty efficiently manually right now. You're probably thinking, I really don't even worry about the packages. I don't have a tool set to deploy them. Well, that's okay. A package is not only because you want to do mass deployment. Even if you're going to have a more hands-on approach, consistency is critical. If you have different engineers, even so little as 1 or 2 of them that are going to click, click, click through an application install, human error is going to come into play. It's not because they're inefficient. It's not because they're not professional. We're all humans. We're going to make mistakes. So therefore, think of an application package as not only a mechanism to make sure you can deploy that application to thousands of devices, but even for small installations or migrations, it allows you to maintain consistency. One click, it goes through, and it's configured the way you want it to be. Now, again, these issues that we're going to go ahead and look at, failed deployment, application conflicts, keep an eye on that one. Application conflicts is huge for packaging. We're going to talk about how to get rid of those. Non-standard configurations, again, simple human error can make those occur, not from anything where IT didn't do their job planning. High support costs. Remember I mentioned one application done wrong, even as an environment of 1,000 machines, you now have 1,000 problems to fix. And what is that going to lead to? Well, clearly, if it's a problem bad enough that you need to repair it, chances are you're going to have end-user downtime. So, application packaging's role in the Windows 7 migration. If we're going to go to Windows 7, this is the time to talk about it. Now, you could do this later down the road, but why take all the problems and headaches of getting your applications out and still go through with them during your migration? Let's look at what we can do instantly to make your migration easier. Also, something to remember that the package, unlike an actual technician, you're going to have almost an instant ROI, your return on your investment. Well, why? Well, a technician, you may have to wait a while to see the fruits of your labor or the fruits of your investment. A package, the moment you deploy it, even one time or 2 times, you're getting a return on your investment. Let's go ahead and talk about an application that takes, I would say, 15 minutes to go ahead and install. Now, you may be sitting here thinking, well, 15 minutes? A monkey can do that. I'm sure my technicians can install 5. Well, look at the whole process. If they're going to do a remote control session, they have to pick up the phone, make sure that the user is ready for them to go ahead and do the remote control, start the remote control session, access the media, whether it's downloading it or you're going to go ahead and do it from a network share, run the software, put the license key in, make sure it works, make sure the end user is comfortable, and they do a test or 2, and then you disconnect. Well, all this takes time. It's not because someone's moving slow. Time, unfortunately, is limited. So therefore, say 15, 20 minutes per an application. Well, if a package can do it in less than 5, and your technician who kicks off that install doesn't have to stay there and wait for it, that's an instant return. You've saved money automatically. What it also does is reducing the end user's downtime. And you may say, well, wait a minute, downtime. If we're deploying it, we don't even have a problem yet. Why do we have downtime? Remember, if the application is not there, the end user can't use it. So just by default, coincidence, they have downtime. The end user, if they need to get into Microsoft Office, and you simply haven't installed it yet, you're right, there's no problem. But you have increased downtime for them. This especially goes back to the smaller organizations, where you have done things efficiently manually for years. Well, if you do a migration, you go through, maybe you have 2 teams, you have an OS wave, and you have an application wave playing cleanup. If you don't have those teams close to each other, you're going to have users that are now on Windows 7, but because you didn't have a package that was enabled for consistency and fast deployment, they may have to wait maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days at most for the packaging team to come through and you install your software. And user downtime simply because of the nature of a migration. So, things to take into consideration, the testing. And how do you do these in-house? We're going to walk through the different steps and the people that are involved with this. But ask yourself these questions. How do you test the software to make sure it works on Windows 7? And that's not just the functionality, right? Functionality is important. You need to know, can you save files, can you print, can you enter data? But does the application itself actually work? Are there errors that aren't being seen in the event log that could lead to a larger problem? Is there a conflict with the DLL just waiting to blue screen a workstation the next time another application is installed? Right? You may already have that application in your environment, but because it's not down yet, maybe it's a one-off that's going to be deployed later. Well, how do you do that? How do you test against those different applications? Now, the deployment is where packaging also comes into play. Right? We talk about the deployment. We've got to consider where and by whom the software is being used. Why is that important? Well, it's going to tell you how hard it's going to be to redeploy that software. And because of those locations and personnel, it's also going to tell you how many devices need to receive it. This goes for everybody, be it a large organization that's either in the United States alone, if they're a global organization, even goes for a small business. You need to understand, where is my effort going to be to redeploy this? And where is that package going to come into play? If you have 5 workstations in Asia-Pac that have no network connectivity, well, then a package is really critical, not because you're going to use it to deploy it, but because you probably only have end users in that office. There's no IT staff. So which one would you trust more? Sending them the media and a long document of 15 pages explaining every single mouse click and then doing a prayer to the deity to make sure that they actually do it right? Or are you going to send them a package where it's click, click, and they're done? Everything that you want configured will be configured. Right? The next part is, how can various target groups be targeted for the installation? Well, if you do this manually, right, it's a little bit more difficult. If you do this by scripts, it's a little bit more difficult. But if you have a package where you can simply throw variables based upon your target groups, it becomes far easier. Now, this really applies to larger organizations, which may need custom settings, maybe a different license file for the same application, depending on the location itself. Maybe you need to send down different business unit codes that allow them to access the applications differently, such as SAP as an example. Well, if you have a package, it's going to be a lot easier than when you're trying to script. Now you can simply throw variables, dependent files down, all from within the package or the tool that's deploying the package. So all these different items that people think about a little bit in the back of their mind, when you look at a migration, they really come to the forefront. Now keep in mind, we haven't even stepped into the deployment. Right? We're all right now in the discovery and the preparation phase. That's where this comes in. And by the way, you're going to hear me say that another 5 times during this slide set. If it's the one thing I can stress, is don't let the applications and any packaging requirements, be it so little or very large, wait until you've already started your migration. If somebody gives a kickoff and you're still asking these questions, That kickoff is premature. So your options, what do you have? Number one, first off, you need to understand, as I said before, unlike a lot of consulting initiatives, a tested and conflict-free MSI package, it will achieve your objectives. Why? Because it's a repeatable utility. Think about it. If you do manual installation, is it repeatable? Well, it is. But is it consistent? Absolutely not. Therefore, if you have a manpower team going around to do what we call cleanup of application installs, you're going to have conflicts. Simply because they may pull down a service pack for it that another engineer didn't. He thought it was being good to the end user and updating it. Where if you have a simple package, then you don't have to worry about it so much. You know, they double click on it, even if you have 5 or 6 different individuals, it's going to be the exact same install. Step 2, a poorly created package has the potential to be very expensive. Now, why is this? If you paid one price for the package, isn't that all you pay for? Well, the answer is no. If it's a poorly created package, you're going to have a lot more cost on the back end, and your ROI will probably go out the window with the very first deployment. If you go to an organization that has a temporary packager, somebody who doesn't do it all the time, but they're a very good and solid IT firm, they do packaging on the side, well, if that individual makes one fat finger, one typo, one misplaced file, or missed DLL conflict resolution, as I said before, one package on a 1,000-node environment could give you 1,000 problems. Well, now, how many hours is it going to take you to clean up those problems? What is the cost of the individual who's going to clean up those problems? Is it a Tier 1 help desk, or are they too busy handling all the other tickets that come in for a migration? Do you have to have a Tier 2, or maybe even a Tier 3 who's got some free time to clean these up? You need to realize just how much money it can cost you on the back end if you have a poorly created package. Not all packages are equal. So the different options you have. One, don't trust anybody. Do it internally. Is this a real option for you? Some teams, yes. Most organizations, no. We're going to see exactly why on our next slide. Move to the next slide. Now, external services firms, such as us, Verismic Application Packaging Service. I manage our team personally, and I can tell you that they are not temporary packagers. We lock them all the way in a closet, maybe the Mountain Dew and pizza, and they do packages 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you could do it internally if the next slide we show you, the step-by-step process, makes sense, and you think you have the manpower or can afford to hire the manpower. But then I ask you, if you do a comparison between hiring all those individuals and the time it will take to do the process versus finding a full-time professional packaging team, not a temporary packager working for an IT department, but a full-time packaging team, which one's cheaper? And I think you'll find if you do the analysis per person and per package and per instance you'll need something packaged, and internally will be astronomically more expensive. Now, the steps, let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's say you do want to do it internally. All right? What do we have to do there? Well, first, we need to have a tool set. We need to understand what you're going to be using to package so that you can understand who needs to be trained and what do they have to be trained in. Right? So the big ones, like Packaging Studio and Flexera Admin Studio. If you're a Landex client, you probably know the name Flexera because they give you a free limited license with every Management Suite purchase. Now, these tool sets are not like most items you would think of. You can buy free packaging, I shouldn't say buy, you can download free packaging tools online, but they're very basic. They're what we call little snapshot tools, right? Put the media out, run the install, see what changed, make the package, everybody's happy. What these allow you to do is to go into full enterprise class packaging. And for those of you that don't know exactly what that means, this gives you the ability to not only run the installs and make a package out of it, but also to keep an ongoing database of every application you create. Now, somebody needs to know how to operate that software. That's training. And it's more than a week. If you were to call Flexera as just one example, the minimum class rate they have is 5 days. And all that teaches is the basics. Doesn't even go into their database, doesn't even go into the DLL conflict checking. You're looking at 15, 20 days of just real-time training to get somebody the knowledge they need. They're going to need months afterwards doing nothing but packaging to become proficient at it. The next is the infrastructure. Now, it kind of sounds funny, right? I'm packaging applications. What infrastructure could I possibly need? Well, remember the power that goes into doing this. A desktop computer is not a suitable platform for packaging. And we've done this ourselves. We've tried to do it the cheap way. It just doesn't work. Other organizations have as well. Typically, if a packager is hired and they ask for a workstation, we're going to give you a ticket for about $3,000, $4,000 machine. And that's the low end. You also need the server to house the database, the ever-growing database conflict checking items. You also need a place to import all of your operating system images, right, so we can check it against the OS. This goes back to making sure that they're going to work on Windows 7. So now you've got a very expensive tool set. You've invested several weeks of basic training for an individual. You've purchased or acquired different resources on your ESX framework to house the back-end part, your database and your images. Now we need to talk about the processes. Right? Do we understand what goes into packaging? Do we understand the responsibilities? Now, the three individuals listed below we're going to talk about in just a second. But you need to understand that just like a project management area, for packaging, you have inputs and outputs. And if you don't put in the correct data to how this package should be made, you're going to get, what did we say before, a poorly created package. What is the timeline for packaging it? Right? If it's somebody who's just been trained, well, they may understand the tool set, but if they run into issues, the timeline for an actual release package could go up. Well, they only go up a day, that's fine. But what if it takes them 3 or 4 days to research how to resolve an issue? They could go 5 days, 6 days. Well, now, if you still have those 100 packages that we talked about that you want to protect out for Windows 7, let's say that just 10% of them need extra days. Let's say each of them only needs 5 days. Well, now we're talking 10 packages with an additional 5 days each. Over one packager, just for the problem packages, you're talking 50 days. You haven't even touched the rest of the 100. Right? Timelines and expectations, that's where it all comes out of. Now, the 3 big resources that should be on this team. One is a packaging resource, the guy who's going to be the brains. He's been trained in the tool set you purchased. He understands the infrastructure that you paid so much to put up. And he's helped you define the processes. But does he do everything? Absolutely not. His job is to do his best to package that resource and nothing else. Can he do the testing? Nope. Can he do the quality assurance before it's released for the migration? Absolutely not. You should have 2 other individuals. And this is so that you don't have the same person trying to go over the same work. Right? If you were going to find an issue during the testing phase, you would not have that issue when he first packaged it. You need to have different sets of eyes. People that understand, I'm looking at someone else's work, not to humiliate them, but to help make sure that what they've released, what they've given to me, is of good quality before it's released. Now, what's the difference between a quality assurance resource and a testing resource? Well, hopefully all the problems are going to be worked out from, between the testing resource and the packaging resource. The quality assurance resource is the last individual to say, before we give this to the migration team, we're going to make sure that it meets our last bit of deployment processes and certification. Big difference there. The package works, that's good. Is it usable in the field? Well, that's a different issue. The testing resource is going to sit in the closet with the packager. The quality assurance resource is going to make sure the package team gets a good product. Now, remember, we're talking about doing this internally. So we went through a lot of steps, and I've been talking for almost 10 minutes. If we look through these, now what are you going to do with that package? Do you have a deployment toolset, such as Landex, Altiris, Microsoft SCCM? If you do, great, because the individual will know how to use the package, give it to him, you can deploy it out. Now, if we look at all those different steps, you may say, well, how much is this going to cost? And as you should. Packagers are very expensive resources. Testing resources and quality assurance, you can build them with just about anybody if you have the spare resources on your team. But packaging individuals, even if somebody you're going to train, as soon as they realize how valuable the commodity they are, they're going to be talking to you about a raise. And if you try to find one in the field, or we can talk to you from experience about this one, it is not easy to find a packaging resource with years of experience that wants, say less than a top CIO makes. Clearly, they're not going to get that, but they think they deserve it. So when we talk about all these people and all the stuff you're going to have to put into it, the option of doing this internally, is it still available? Yes. But, as I said before, compare this to the per package price and the per incident price that you would have if you went with a full-time professional packaging team. Now, as I mentioned, our team, it's all we do. We don't have anything else. We have different teams for different parts of our company. Our packagers do nothing but that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, let's go ahead and talk about our solution and how we go ahead and provide packages to our team. We've been doing this for quite some time. I would say our team is going on 7, it might be 8 years now, at least 7 years of doing packages. We've built them. They're all highly experienced. They're all certified in the tool sets we use. Everything we release to you goes through a process. Now, our Global Vice President of Products and Services, Frank Griffiths, designed this process from the ground up. He's taken the time to make sure that every step of the way, whatever we do for every client is the same. Now, one other very important item, when we talk about conflict-free software packages, what's one of the big things that causes conflict? Organizations become warehouses. If you have 100 packages you need to deploy, well, if they do those 100 packages, a lot of times they'll keep them. Why? Because they want to use it later on. If they do a package in January, then another client comes to them in, say, August, and asks for the same one, their thought is, well, wait a second. I have this in January. I still have the source media in our packaging application. I can charge them the same price. All I have to do is change a few little parts in here, change the name, change the license code. Well, you can let that out, but is it guaranteed to be conflict-free? No. And why? Because they're not going through the full discovery process of how you want your application configured. At Verismic, we use 0 recycled packages. I'll say that again. We use 0 recycled packages. We wipe them off every 30 days after a contract is complete. We do not keep them. And in fact, if you come back to us and want that same package done differently, say 90 days down the road, you're going to have to provide that media and license codes again. We simply don't have it. We refuse to do it. A quality product means that we start from scratch every single time just for you. Now, inside, let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to achieve this. The different items and inputs and outputs that go into packaging, well, if you're a project manager on the line right now, this is probably going to look very familiar, right? Your inputs, what do you do in the meantime, your operations, and then your release, your output. We're going to talk about these as we go through. We follow this entire process for every single package. We make sure we get it straight from you. It's not recycled at all. We do the exact same conflict checking for every single package, and then we make sure you're satisfied with it. Now, if we do a package discovery, one may say, well, why wouldn't I be satisfied? If I'm telling you how to do it, the first time I get the package from you, it should be perfect. Human error. When we tell you that you can accidentally have human error in your teams, we are not so bold as to say we are free of human error. We understand that. Therefore, before you accept the package, we want you to test it. And we want to hear from you, yes, it is the way I want it, or maybe we missed the setting, or perhaps you even missed the setting on the discovery package. This is a team effort. We go back and forth. Now, the stage 1 for our process is our introduction. We actually walk you through and introduce you to our packaging service. You have a web portal that is dedicated to you or your organization. This is where you'll keep track of what the progress is of all of your different packages, how many have the media uploaded, how many are in progress of being packaged, how many are released, and most importantly, how many are accepted. We always try to have that face-to-face touch. Now, the team, as I said, we keep them locked in the closet. We don't want them meeting with clients. All they do is package all day long. Therefore, myself and one of the account executives, such as Jeff Warner in North America, would walk you through this process. We want you to feel comfortable with it. The second stage is our discovery. Now, from our systems management experience for the last 13 years, we know how to do discovery. Therefore, we did not go and get one of these documents off the web and customize it. We wrote it based upon what our packagers recommend. We trust them. Why should people who are not packagers have all the input into a discovery or discovery document for packaging? Therefore, you'll find out it walks through all the different things that you want for each package. It's already customized file. Do you need any transforms? Do you need any INIs to go down along with it? We want to find all those different configuration items up front. This is not a one-time process. We want to receive this for every single package. Second off, during the discovery and software upload, we would love a copy of the medium where you're going to deploy this. Most organizations, if they're testing out Windows 7, they have virtual images of Windows 7 that are configured with your corporate standards. We'll compare it to a very basic packaging organization where we do it against a plain Windows 7. We want to get the package as close as possible to what you're going to use in your environment. Therefore, if you do have those virtual environments or you're willing to build one for us, by all means, we want to use that when we do our packaging. Now, stage 3, the actual packaging process. What our staff will do first is go through a rough run. Make sure we answer that very first question, is it possible to even deploy the software for Windows 7? And we need to know that up front. Let's not waste time going through it just to have errors all the way through the process. Let's find out if it can even be done. The second is going to be not only the package creation, but the stability testing and the quality assurance. Now, part of that also goes along to what we talked about, the database. Remember the back end that you need for packaging. You can put this up internally. It's going to grow to several hundred gigs, possibly even a terabyte during a migration. When you import your different OS configurations, your different packages that you're going to use, this is a critical step. When we talked about before, if you put a package down for part of your migration, well, clearly not all of them are going to be down at the exact same time. You may deploy the packages over a series of a couple of days. But what happens if you don't have anything to check the DLL conflict? Later in the week, you're liable to blue screen 5, 10, or 100 machines because it was at no fault of your own. You couldn't see the conflicts that were coming down the road. Step 4, after you've tested and made sure that not only is our quality acceptable, but it performs the way you want for your migration in your new Windows 7 environment, we allow you to download it from our high-speed FTP. As I mentioned, we define a final product for a given period of time. Afterward, once we have that delivery acceptance, we start counting our time to live, and then we delete them. This goes to our promise that we never use a recycled package for any customer in any application. So the benefits that we've got, one right off the bat, reduce deployment errors. We're going to catch those conflicts in a much shorter time frame than you're able to. We're also going to reduce your project costs. Now, what's the biggest raise of a project cost we talked before? It's not the packaging up front, it's the core packaging on the back end. If you have a core package, you're going to have much higher support costs as those help tickets come flying in. You're going to be able to deliver your project and your migration faster. Why? Because we're able to go ahead and handle a high bandwidth of packages. For you, as you mentioned before, you're going to have to get spun up with your team, you have to train them, and you're surely not going to have maybe more than 1 or 2 packages. So the bandwidth will be much, much slower than what a full-time team can do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To reduce end user impact, we talked before, it's not necessarily about the problems. If the application is not there, well, that's an impact to the end user. So the fact that we can get those packages done in a responsible manner, and you can get them out to their desktop, we reduce the end user impact. We also guarantee, as I said before, risk-free packages. These are not recycled in any way. We follow your instructions, and because of our acceptance methodology, we make sure that you're able to test them in your environment. Therefore, downloading from us does not constitute acceptance. A lot of organizations, once you bring that package down, it's in your hands. We don't believe in that. We want to make sure after we're done, you have a chance to test it in your environment or your migration. And then tell us, yes, we accept this. At that point, it is guaranteed risk-free. Improve migration efficiency. We talked about this before at the very beginning. If you're doing things manually, that's a massive workload, right? That's cleanup. That's not migration, that's cleanup. So therefore, if you can get the applications done before you ever start and reduce your cleanup to say a 5% effort or even a 1 or 2%, that's going to allow your staff to get back to their regular day-to-day tasks much, much faster. Migrations can be over-consuming for all of your staff. If they are, that means the discovery and the preparation was not done efficiently. A lot of things go in up front to make your migration much easier. Now, we're also scalable. We do some organizations globally that give us, say, 500 packages a month. They queue them up, tell us when they need them. If they needed to have something done in an emergency later in the year, we can do it. Some organizations only give us 10 packages a quarter. So depending on what you need, we can go ahead and scale and devote more resource time specifically to your queue. Don't feel because you have a massive amount that no organization will be able to keep up with you. We can scale for the largest of global organizations when it comes to your packaging requirements. Now, the bottom one, which we're very proud of, we give you a free package. We want you to try the service and try our quality risk-free before you ever buy anything. You can contact any of our account execs, whatever day you want to, and say, I want to take advantage of the ability to try a package. And what they will do is line you up with what we call our demo service. You provide the media, you go through the full discovery, all the communication requirements, you do the download, you do the testing. The only difference is, and this is the best part, it's free. You don't pay for anything. And you get to keep the package. This isn't even a trick. We don't put a timer on it. That package doesn't pop up a smiley face in 30 days and say it's expired. It's yours. So therefore, if you have a package you need to be done, if you're interested and would like to try the service, go ahead and package it for you. Right? Contact the account execs or Heidi Smith. She can put you in touch with one. Now, the number one item here, and this is terrible, I hate to admit this, I tried to steal the iPad that we have for this. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to it. Heidi locked it up. But if you were to purchase 10 packages or more by June 10th, they're going to give you a free iPad. I'm going to try to steal it, but I highly doubt it'll be successful. So therefore, don't let this opportunity go to waste. Grab that iPad. If you don't, I will. Now, with that said, here's the link at the bottom of the slide. If you want to go ahead and try our packaging service, I welcome all of you to go ahead and take advantage of it. We would love to give you that experience, and as I said, a free package. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Heidi. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. And if there are very few, it's been my pleasure talking about our packaging service and really the importance of packaging for Windows 7 migration. Heidi?
Great, thank you, Mike. You did a great job.
Heidi?
I did have somebody have their hand raised, but they didn't ask a specific question. So if they want to go ahead and type it in the questions feature, we can get that answered. I did have a question up here. Mike, somebody asked if you're going to speak about virtualizing Windows 7s or applications, and I said that I don't believe that's a topic for this webcast. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything there.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, this is a webcast only for the Verismic packaging service and how to make your Windows 7 migration easier, but not for virtualized solutions or anything else.
And I also did say that you are very knowledgeable about packaging, so if anybody does have questions, they can contact you at your email address as well.
Absolutely. Always welcome.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem that maybe they didn't have a question, so I think we should probably end it there and let everybody get back to their day. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there is another one. Sorry. Question is, for applications that work on XP but do not work on Windows 7, do you work to resolve those conflicts?
We do. That's one of the items we put into our packaging service. A lot of times, if you don't have the ability to package in-house, or you have an experienced packager, only from the time you've been doing it, you won't know how to modify the application installs to get rid of those conflicts. Now, we won't lie. We'll tell you all the time that there are going to be applications that just can't go onto Windows 7, as I mentioned in the beginning, that will need an upgrade from the manufacturer. But if it's possible to resolve those conflicts and allow it to be installed, absolutely, we do our best.
All right. Next question is, can you package Windows XP Virtual PC with our ghost image?
Can you? I think I need a little more information on that one.
Okay, John, can you provide a little more information? Maybe I didn't say it right. I'll just repeat it for you. Can you package Windows XP Virtual PC with our ghost image? And I think John is working.
Windows XP Virtual PC with your ghost image. I have to say he kind of caught me to a point I'm not sure I understand the question. What we can do is this. If you can get the contact information, you and I can always reach out to him afterwards. Just talk about it verbally.
Okay, and then John added just a little more info. It's XP mode from Windows 7.
Can we package that into your ghost image? Remember, what we're talking about is applications and packaging those. The actual OS images, you can use the XP mode inside of those as far as whether you can turn it on by default. Is that what you're looking for in your OS image?
Just waiting for a reply. Sorry, Mike, I'm just waiting for a reply. I'll let you know. Maybe maybe you and John can take that offline as well, and maybe have an email.
Yes, absolutely. My email address is right down the screen. Feel free, and we can even talk verbally today.
All right, excellent. Again, if there's any questions, you can email them to myself or Mike. Also, this session was recorded, and the recording will be made available to all attendees in a follow-up email coming out very shortly. With that, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who attended, and I hope you have an excellent day. Thank you, Mike, for your time as well.
My pleasure. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay, bye.